What kind of relationship do you have with horses?
A very good one. A kind of friendship, I'd say. I'd even go further. I love horses. My whole life, it's a nice way of saying it, has revolved around horses. I was in the stables as a small boy, and I've stayed there to the present day. The most important rule, right up, if you want to use this expression, right up to the high school movements, is that the harmony between rider and horse is visible. As a school horse, the very best horse is only just good enough. Horses are at the forefront of my life. They determine my life. I still regard it as a gift to be able to serve classical horsemanship in my profession, in my work.
Distinguished by modesty and discipline, brought up in the noblest spirit of horsemanship right from his youth, Egon von Neindorff has remained true to his goal, to serve the horse. He has ridden and studied horses of all breeds. His motto has always been, further the horse, but don't overtax him.
In my youth, the horse played a different role. It was a beast of labor, an economic factor. So it was trained carefully and very sparingly in order to be able to use it as long as possible. Attention was always paid to giving the horse enough exercise. Today I'd say that horses, animals designed to run, have a right to exercise. To make a horse into a riding horse, to form it and shape it, calls for systematically structured training.
In the 1950s, Neindorff earned a name for himself as a successful equestrian competitor. His path to success was an individual one, but it was guided always by the laws of classical horsemanship. His style was characterized by precision, lightness, and the ability to influence the horse imperceptibly. In his professional career, training and teaching have played a decisive role. A riding instructor at just 18, he always modeled himself on the great teachers. He was influenced especially by the great riding masters of the Vienna school, Zeiner and Wettchen. At the von Neindorff Institute, their influence still makes itself felt today.
Jaguar, one of my horses, earned quite a name for himself, not least among German breeders. A remarkable horse, not an easy horse, but with a great personality. I believe that classical horsemanship means nature-oriented training adapted to each individual horse. For me, working with a wide range of horses, whether from the saddle, on the hand, or driving a carriage, always represents a fresh challenge.
The Egon von Neindorff Foundation is intended to ensure that work here at the Karlsruhe Riding Institute continues in the spirit of the old masters. If one wants to give a horse the bearing it itself has when seeking to be beautiful, make sure that it enjoys being ridden and appears proud and splendid. Xenophon, 430 BC. Let us not vex our horses. Their gracefulness is like the scent of flowers. Once lost, it never returns. Pluvinel in his Riding Instruction, 1620. From the noble horse you wish to ride, you yourself must learn its intentions. Never demand anything imprudent of it. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. The art of riding is an infinitely difficult art, and no one has truly become a master in it before age has bleached his crown. Steinbrecht. To master a living creature, one must first and foremost master oneself. Podajski. A magazine is doing an article on Baroque horses, and the riding school has plenty of examples. Neapare, a Lipizzaner stallion from the Neapolitano line. Alicante, a proud Spanish horse. Andalusian and Portuguese Lusitanos are among the many prized breeds to be found here. This Quadrille comes from Bohemia. It's a race once bred as coach horses for the Viennese imperial court. Here in Karlsruhe, Magnet and his companion Catan prove their dressage abilities. Lisa, an Egyptian-bred Azil Arab from the United States, has a manner reminiscent of Arab shows. German warm-bloods show their quality as riding horses in dressage.
All work with a horse should have an underlying gymnastic. That's the point, one can say, the way of making a horse more beautiful. With bad training, you can make even the most beautiful horse look ugly. When buying a horse, one naturally has to consider this horse's conformation fit together. The head and neck. Does he have a fine head? That may sound silly. One doesn't ride on the head, but it's one factor to consider when looking for, let's call it, a fitting appearance for the work. Through gymnastic schooling, you saw the deep bending in the hind legs and haunches, creating the appearance of riding uphill. After all, later the horses are meant to serve as school horses. And a school horse should possess a solid training so that he can teach young riders accordingly. Because I always say that the four-legged teacher is far more important than the two-legged one. The real teacher is always the horse, the well-trained horse. The training of a horse shouldn't commence too soon. We used to begin training horses as 4-year-olds. Nowadays, there's a tendency to start with 3-year-olds. Horse breeding has made great advances. There are 3-year-old horses which are already fairly well developed. But one mustn't forget that their sinews and joints aren't ready yet. The horse is still a child, and one has to take its age into account. The horse itself determines when its training should begin. And one should always finish one lesson properly before starting the next.
This 3-year-old mare is being started calmly and carefully on the lunging rein. Training begins with the cavasson, without a bit. Even a saddle has an imbalancing effect on a young horse. Generating trust and being consistent, they're the most important things for the development of a young horse. It takes trust to make a horse, an animal of flight, capable of outstanding performance. work on the lunging rein is an important part of a young horse's basic training. Seeking the contact of the side reins, already in balance and secure, this 4-year-old works in a relaxed manner without the distracting weight of the rider. Whether the goal is dressage or jumping, the same training principles apply. Forwards, downwards, with a light hand. Also an absolute must for this Lipizzaner stallion. Suppleness and rhythm are essential prerequisites for further training. On the bit, in light collection, this is how he presents himself a few weeks later. Development of the seat and other corrections, for example, the manner in which the reins are held, are also important for the advanced rider. The well-balanced equilibrium seat, as Steinbrecht called it, is the basis of all riding.
Galopp, march, stop. Light with your hands, light with your hands. Don't ever work backwards. Both hands at the same height.
So, and always give again. And now, prepare for the half halt. Remember the orchestra of the aids. Hands low and walk. Reins long. The main thing is for the rider to learn to sit correctly and stay sitting. It requires a quiet seat to be able to direct the horse and to direct him mainly so that he comes on the bit and accepts the rider's hand. The rider must be able to apply the driving aids in such a way that the horse, who has to change his center of gravity to accommodate the rider's weight, can bring his weight back more to the hind legs so that the weight is evenly distributed. This is a difficult change for the horse, so it takes time. There are so-called naturally balanced horses who don't have much difficulty in this respect. On the other hand, for the horse's muscle system, it's important first to do some schooling in this respect, so that harmony between rider and horse can develop right from the beginning.
Harmony expressed in the natural way a horse behaves and moves. The classical approach to training in particular attaches supreme importance right from the start to the principal paces. The young horse should present himself rhythmically pure, energetic, but not hurried. In their first years of life, young horses, like these young stallions on the pasture at Marbach State Stud Farm, should be free of any pressure. That's the best way to ensure a strong, relaxed riding horse capable of being trained. Growing up in a large herd allows a horse to develop in a healthy social environment. Egon von Neindorff, a great master of the work on the hand with maestoso Ratisbona.
Ein freiwilliger Antritt. Man sieht das tänzerische.
Stepping forward of his own free will with a dance-like movement. The movement itself is important. It should be relaxed. Now step forward again. More effect on the hindquarters. That gives the horse more expression, and the collection can accordingly become greater. Now we'll let him go on working by himself.
To a large extent, his success is due to the quiet but firm way he treats his horses, with his voice playing an important role.
The horse must give me his attention.
So ist fat. Freier.
Rest pauses, praise and relaxation phases are an important part of every training session. A new lesson is never an end in itself. It's always part of the overall gymnastic program. Horses are athletes and, like athletes, need to start every training session with a warm-up phase. Work in the pillars calls for extreme care and calmness. One prerequisite for this kind of work is that the horse is mature enough and that the trainer possesses the necessary experience and feel for it. To ensure the necessary give, the horse is on the double launch. Achieving one's goal here takes patience.
The horse must always be given a chance to calm down again. I use the pillars during collected exercise to enable the horse to find his bearings in a large space. Work from the ground is an important aspect of my training program. It's a bit like a dancer. Free of the rider's weight, the horse can concentrate completely on the piaf. The traditional method was holding the horse between the pillars with the pillar reins. For once, I'll demonstrate that now with a well-prepared horse.
This calls for a special bridle. Alexis, a Württemberger, reacts to the voice and to the slightest sign without any whip contact. Quadrille on the long reins, a display the Riding Institute has been staging for almost 40 years. Pictures like these are a reflection of trust between the trainer and the horse, and sensitive use of the aids at all times. Between horse and rider isn't conducted by reins. The play of the horse's ears shows the concentration he's directing at the dismounted rider. And one of von Neindorff's students for over 30 years. It's as though the reins were still threads. Their weight and movement influence the entire horse. The whip, used sensitively and supported by the voice, completes the range of aids. A transition from the piaf to the levade, a perfect exhibition of balance, strength and concentration. Apart from von Neindorff, says Ulrich Schnitzer, he's never seen anyone capable of exerting such maximum influence on a horse with such a minimum of perceptible aids. It's above all his extremely sensitive hand and the influence he exerts with his seat and the way he harmonizes the aids. In this respect, he is unique. Riding in the side saddle requires a finely trained horse. There's still a debate on who actually invented it. One thing is sure, the side saddle evolved in Europe. It became increasingly popular from about the 12th century onwards and enjoyed its heyday in the Baroque period. The curb bit, a sensitive instrument, works in conjunction with the left leg, the whip, and to a certain extent with the rider's weight. Elizabeth, Empress of Austria, was considered a daredevil side-saddle horsewoman. In riding promenades of the 19th century, side-saddle riding underwent a renaissance. Demonstrations of this historic style of riding are proving very popular again today.
The requirement on the hind legs is to flex and nevertheless produce suppleness. The hindquarters increasingly take over the weight. The horse's carriage becomes more upright and collection is achieved. Now he's giving more, isn't he? The hand stays totally quiet so that it's ready to give more. Give a little encouragement occasionally. I repeat, the hand is ready and able to give. The reins, yes, give, drive, half halt, and be light again. That's the way. Give again. And during the changes, we let the hind leg come forward. Now, totally quiet with the hand, and back again.
The aids combine to tune the horse even more finely. Melissa Sims, head rider and instructor at the riding school. A von Neindorff student for 13 years, she bears the stamp of his commitment to riding culture. She's a real disciple of his philosophy of horsemanship. The passage, developed from the piaf, rhythmically pure, with full engagement from the hindquarters, requires an elastic seat that can go with the horse's lively movements. Transitions require empathy and appropriate tuning of the aids, with the suppleness that transforms carrying power into driving power. Identifying a horse's talents, never overtaxing a horse, using gymnastic training to overcome any weaknesses. These are von Neindorff's great strengths.
He'd like to create an awareness, an awareness for people about horses, and about dressage, and that you don't have to be riding a piaf or a passage to be riding classical dressage. You can be riding what's very difficult, just a circle or riding straight ahead. The awareness that dressage is much more than just going on a competition and having a horse do 20 flying changes off one tempo or something. It's a philosophy. And it's something that the animal does with you.
Riding can become art. Dancing horses are an expression of strength and harmony. Wayne Roden, viola player with the San Francisco Philharmonic Orchestra and a von Neindorff student, talking about the experience of riding well-schooled horses.
There are moments here for me that it's like the best moments in music. It's a long, long discipline. It's something you have to try for years to do. And really, at the best, you should have the best teaching like this, the best horses from an early age. It's very much like music.
Sit bone, left leg, sit up and back, and just think gallop.
Students from all over the world visit this riding school in Karlsruhe.
Good. And head up.
A pas de trois of black horses. The asymmetrical choreography makes exciting use of the space provided by the riding hall. Seemingly effortless, this is in fact precision riding. It's not the difficulty of any single lesson which is the decisive factor, but the overall harmony. Polido, a Lusitano stallion in the piaf. Pure in rhythm with marked diagonal steps in a collected carriage, also in the pirouette with strongly expressive action. The piaf, one training goal of the lessons on the ground and a prerequisite for the airs above the ground. The set horse with a highly developed bend of the hindquarters takes on increased weight, allowing him to raise himself into the levade. Here, without a rider, in the required stance, and under the rider in a stage where the levade develops out of the passade. Max Honecker, Swiss international rider and judge, long-time board member of the Society of Friends of the Spanish Riding School in Vienna, on Egon von Neindorff. He says that Herr von Neindorff demonstrates the true classical art of riding by training in accordance with nature. Classical riding means natural riding, without coercion, with a great deal of feeling and patience.
The lesson for this evening. The emphasis, as always, on the basic gaits. For a while we want to relax our horses. We should think about forwards, downwards. We want to shorten the reins and begin, one by one, with trotting. Anyone wanting to work at the walk should go to the inside of the track. One by one, in the working tempo, trot. rhythm, and even tempo. Think of tempo, position, and flexion. You all know that. Again and again, give. The hand position totally quiet. Each horse should seek contact with the rider's hand, pleasantly, easily. And one by one, walk. Smooth transitions, give with the hand, reins long, and pet your horse. We all know how difficult it is to ride a correct walk. It should be even and active. Quietly let the reins long, allow the horse to be in a relaxed frame. Long, even movements. If a horse rushes, ride a circle. Let the horse flex a little. Perhaps take a few steps forward. You all know what I mean.
Jeder weiß, was ich mit dem Schieben hier ansprechen möchte.
For me, passing on the idea of classical riding means being a guide in the service of a cause. The path itself is the goal.
Nicht in der Hüfte nachgeben. Wieder Luft.
Again, give. So,
Auf der langen Seite.
on the long side, I'm thinking of preparing for the lateral movements. Corner, shoulder in, half pass. Out of the corner, a half circle. Don't be afraid to glance in the mirror to check. As I said before, it's there for you. Yes. What you drive with the left leg, you absorb with the right. Good. You'll learn. Very quiet with your hands. Even less with your hands. And if he half halts and increases carriage, give with the hand a little so that the hind legs have enough space. Right. Now we come to a tempo where the horse is active, where the hind quarters can engage themselves actively. And again, canter. In all friendship, the horse must seek contact with the hand. Upper body quiet. Engage him by driving, not by moving back and forth. You're working too hard. Right. Ladies, I think it's time to end our lesson. Anything else? Originally, the object of training in dressage was to create a sure-footed and obedient horse for riding in rough terrain. Dressage was a means to an end, not an end in itself.
Andalusian stallions command respect through their appearance and expressiveness. Gymnastically schooled and trained in line with the rules of classical riding, they fascinate with their baroque manner. For hundreds of years, their high action was one goal of breeding efforts. For me, riding begins in the stable.
I feed my horses myself because I enjoy taking care of them individually.
Grain is fed 5 times a day. There's a reason for this. The horse's small stomach can cope better with more frequent feedings. The personal care and contact form part of the overall relationship.
It's important to allow the horse to keep his personality, and yet still make the hierarchy quite clear.
For the airs above the ground, it's essential that the rider doesn't interfere with the horse's movement. Seat exercises, without stirrups or reins, in the passade. With the tail traditionally fashioned, in the courbette, the horse leaps forwards and upwards with deeply bent haunches. The hind legs are pulled up parallel under his weight. As required, the hindquarters land first. The capriole, which literally means goat jump, is considered the most difficult of all the school jumps. The art lies in the kick of the hind legs. From collection, the piaf is developed into this jump, a courbette. In all the airs above the ground, it's important for the horse to exhibit an inner quiet and relaxation. Twice a year since 1954, public performances have been held here at the von Neindorff Riding School. Everything is naturally made spick and span beforehand. Behind the scenes, making sure everything goes off smoothly.
Young riders first learn the basics, and only then gradually refine the artistic expression. Good riders are always aware of their responsibility towards their horse.
An Oldenburger mare demonstrating the passade. Special breeding features are not a prerequisite for the airs above the ground. Here, a Lipizzaner in one of the performances, demonstrating the courbette. An English partbred, also demonstrating the courbette. Craftsmanship or art. In riding, as in architecture, the distinction is fleeting. The riding hall is an example. Built around 1900, its unusual timber load-bearing members have earned it the status of a protected monument. The aesthetic qualities of horses. These have inspired artists from the early cave painters to modern times. Oil paintings by Renata Blank, based on studies done at the von Neindorff Riding School. She has specialized in equestrian motifs. Strength, stamina, energy. These are the attributes which have always given the horse a special place in man's relationship with the animal kingdom. work and training make horses into athletes, make them beautiful.
Wenn Malkunst, so wie ich das auffasse,
When painting, as she understands it, is done properly, says Renate Blank, the picture conveys a harmony, something of beauty derived from a situation. And that's what she seeks to capture.
Das finde ich wieder
It's something she finds in the constantly renewed image of a dressage horse, or in this quadrille on the long rein, for example, or in the ridden quadrille, virtually living pictures.
Das wird praktisch zum lebendigen Bild.
The quadrille, a living picture, captured with movements and figures. The individual rider is subordinated to the overall image. Music and space complement each other. The classical quadrille is ridden with 4 horses. Presentations by the Spanish riding school in Vienna usually feature 8 riders, while the cavalry school Björkner quadrille used to have 12. In line with the Institute's long-standing tradition, the demonstration here features 6 grades. The impressive impact comes not from the degree of difficulty of the individual movements, but from the harmony of the quadrille as a whole. In a society dominated by technology, horses have acquired a new role, gained a new significance. The classical style of riding, emphasizing the harmony between horse and rider, fostered for centuries by masters like Egon von Neindorff, is an unforgettable experience for the onlooker too.